Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Operational Reset Podcast. You know who this is brought to you by. This is Tactical Resilience, the Operational Reset Stack Method. This is a stack-based human behavior system that I created. It's what I needed when I was a cop. It's what so many cops need to increase their nervous system flexibility so that they can access the skills that they are developing. And look, so far, uh, hard fought to get, right? Firearms tactics, combatives, communication, all of these things, the skill might be there, but the access to the skill under pressure might be limited. So what do? You train nervous system flexibility so you can access those skills when you need them. This is what ORSM teaches. So if you're interested in that, joeswansontactical.com. Go there, check out the online program, get tapped in with that, and start training that nervous system flexibility so that you can access those skills at any time. All right. And now, again, I like to get that in quick, but I want to welcome my guest. I'm excited to talk to this guy. We connected on Instagram, started chatting back and forth. At first, I thought it was a scam because, there was no face on the Instagram and it was all about day trading. But then I got into this dude's story a little bit and I was really intrigued and asked him to come on the podcast because I want him to share about what he's doing now. Central Texas law enforcement. And welcome to the show, Shepherd Medrano.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate you having me on here and getting to share a little bit about my story and get to also hear everything that you've done and continue to do for the law enforcement community. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Look, again, it was intriguing to me when we first started chatting. I'm always interested in those like sort of, outskirts, kind of like niche things that people get into. And look, when I was in law enforcement, I was looking for that stuff too. I was looking for extra money. I had been a tattooer prior to coming into law enforcement. I started
Yes.
tattooing in the mid 90s. And so I always had secondary and employment paperwork in with the
Yeah.
departments that I worked at so that I could go tattoo. But I was also looking at other things, real estate and things that I could do to just supplement the income. So I think it's a common thing for law enforcement.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think it takes a special person, to get into law enforcement. You got to be disciplined. You have to, be motivated in some way. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's always just been in me, just growing up and starting working at an early age. I think 14, I got my first job. And I only had a couple months, like when I first started college, that I didn't have a job. But again, like when you're in law enforcement, you got to be motivated, you got to be disciplined. And I think it's just carried over to where I'm at now.
I think so too, man. I agree with that. Like I got my first job working for my dad when I was 15 also. As soon as I could drive, I was like he had this side business that he was doing, this water delivery business. And so
Yeah.
I was delivering like 5 gallon water jugs around to a
Oh
30,
yeah.
40 mile radius. And it was pretty cool. There was this one dude I remember as a teenager, you're like, this is where you start to get these experiences with people. And
Yeah.
I remember going to this one dude's house. He had 8-foot fences around his entire property. This is like central Minnesota and Midwest, big 8-foot fences around his whole house.
Hmm.
Uh, he had like a gate entry to this. It's all chain link. He had probably a dozen pit bulls
Mm.
and he would train them. He told me right off, he was like maybe Russian and American, and he
Yeah.
would train them in a combination of maybe or German and American. He would train them in a like mixed language,
Oh
and
yeah.
and he always said, he goes, if you ever pull up and he's like, I'm out training, he's like, don't get out of your car. Like, wait till I bring the dogs in and get them secured. And,
Yeah.
so I remember I would go in and I'm carrying, 2 big 5-gallon jugs of water. I go into the first section of the gate, and then he opens a second section, and Herman was one of I still remember this dude. Herman was the biggest pit bull there, and he was obviously the alpha dog of this pack, besides the guy. And he immediately runs his head right into my like, nuts. And I got what can I do? I got two big 5-gallon
Yeah.
jugs side to side, right? That I'm
Yeah.
carrying. And this dude says, Herman, bite his balls off, bite his balls off. And and I'm like, bro, no, come on. Like it's cool, man. Like
Right.
stop. And but he would buy the water for the dogs. And I just remember it was like one of those first like real weird experiences with like human connection where you're like, oh, this guy's living a different life. Like he's
Yeah,
definitely
for sure.
something different. It shaped
Yeah.
my perspective. But dude, you don't get that. You don't get that unless you start working early and you start working um in a place where you can connect with people.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like I said, um, I got my first job at 14 and I have 2
Mm.
parents, right? So loving, supporting. I'm not saying that we grew up, in poverty, but I bought my first truck at 17. I put myself through college. I paid for my phone, insurance, and all that. And they helped so much. But I think early on, I knew the importance of working, saving money, and
Yeah.
if you're gonna be an adult, you're gonna move out. I mean, that's just how it is, right? I mean, you gotta take care of yourself and you gotta I remember one of the interesting jobs I got in college was sandblasting. And I would put on it's pretty much like a high powered sandblaster and you can get the rust off trailers, anything like that, and have the big UFO suit and I'm sandblasting and I'd wake up, at 5 to do that 5 to 8 before I go to class in college. Had a lot of interesting jobs. Again, I tried Airbnbs, I tried vending machines, as a
Oh,
police
interesting.
officer. So I was always, I think, just had that mindset of just grinding, and you gotta, money is not the key to happiness, but it helps a lot, right? And it makes life
Yeah.
so much easier, So I was always trying to find ways, and like I said, it was only a couple months since 14 where I really didn't have a job.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was I think I always just had that mindset, But kinda wanna talk about a little bit, how I got into law enforcement. Um, I love sports, I love fitness as a
Yeah.
teenager, and I went to college because that's what people did. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Um, so I went to college. Through college, I met a friend, he was going through the police academy, and
Oh,
I
cool.
didn't have any family or really close friends in law enforcement or in military. It never really crossed my mind growing up. Um, and seeing him go through the police academy, it, sparked interest just because he was a good friend of mine and it kind of inspired me. Um, but at the time, he went through the whole police academy and I'm asking questions. I'm talking to as many state troopers, deputies, cops as I can because I didn't want to, try out being a cop. I didn't want to just, okay, let me do this for a year
Yeah.
and see how I like it. And, then I'll quit. Um, so I watched as many videos, and this was 2015, 2016. So even at that time, I knew the negative view that people had on law enforcement.
Sure.
I told my parents about it. I told my friends. So many people. Are you sure you want to be a cop? Everybody loves firefighters. And even back then, nobody hates firefighters. Um, but I tried. Like I said, I spoke to and asked as many questions to anyone in law enforcement, the schedule. They told me all the negative things, the stress. And about a year later is when I fully committed to it. And I was like, I'm gonna make a career out of this. So, that's how it started. I wanted to work in corrections for a year because I wanted to see any ride along I went to. There weren't too many police officers that worked in the jail, and they were like, hey, what happens like about the booking process, what happens at, and they didn't have too much idea. So I wanted to do that for about a year. I ended up working corrections for a year and a half, and I got a lot of experience doing
Wow.
that. And then since 2020, I went to the police academy and been a police officer ever since.
Damn. So look, I can resonate with this because I had nobody in my family my grandfather was military, but um, nobody in law enforcement. Like I
Yeah.
was the first, and I had been a tattooer. Like, what kind of weird transition is that? Like,
Yeah.
and so, I can totally resonate with that. I did some ride-alongs with, a buddy in Vallejo, California, and real that was exciting, right? Graveyard ride-along. I did a graveyard ride-along for the CHP with another buddy of mine, and,
Mhm.
I got this bug, like, this hook that's like, "Wow, this is exciting." Like, the I didn't have any issues with cops, like, even growing up, like, I would get pulled over,
Yeah.
um, I tattooed a lot of criminals, I
Yeah.
tattooed a lot of people that did, but I also tattooed a lot of cops, and so it was there's something about that. What was it about the job, like, when you were talking to all these folks and you were getting the negative feedback and maybe some positive as well, you were going on these ride-alongs, watching these videos, and how great is it that we have the opportunity to watch videos now and really
Yeah.
get a full, like a full spectrum view of this thing, but what was it about it that, like, pulled you in?
I think it was exactly when people would say, you know, be a firefighter. You like, don't be a cop because of all these stress and negative things. And I think the challenge is what really drew me in. You
Yeah,
know, like I didn't really have too many police interactions. Like I said, similar to you. But I did. You see those videos whether it's the cops who are just out of shape or in some way not fit for the job, whether they couldn't control their emotions. And I wanted to be not like that. I wanted to be the difference, and I knew that there's so many people who are capable of being police officers, right? But only a small percent are willing to do it. And even a smaller percent of those people that are willing to do it are actually passionate about it and take pride in what they do. And that's why I think I took so long to get into this, even though my friend was urging me and, he's like, hey, join the police academy. It took me about a year after talking to so many people in law enforcement, going on ride alongs and asking my friend who was in the police academy and watching videos, try to, anything that would make me not want to do this. I spent for that whole year, and then after that year, I still wanted to do it. That's when I made the commitment to do it,
yeah.
and I haven't looked back since.
I love it, man, and I love the awareness of, like, I always say corrections, the hardest job in law enforcement, and it's a different type of stress in that type of environment.
Mhm.
Coming out, understanding human behavior, human communication, situational awareness, the vibe in a room or in a pod,
Yeah.
and being able to, not only see the bad, but also see past that suffering and understand that a lot of these folks just had a bad situation and doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. What was it about that? Like, that's interesting to me that you had some awareness to say, you know what? Let me get into corrections first to kind of get my feet wet here. What was that? Like, tell me about that. Like, how did you decide that? And then I want to kind of move into the transition.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what you said. It's, one of the hardest jobs in law enforcement is corrections because it's you, and for me, it was 48 inmates, in that pod. And again, I didn't really have too many friends in corrections, so I couldn't really bounce ideas off of them. But going to these ride-alongs with the police officers I did, and they said, "Oh, I have no idea, kind of what happens." And I was always just curious. I guess that's what kind of interested me because I knew at the time when I wanted to be a police officer, I just want to get that experience first of going in
Mm.
corrections. And I definitely think that correction officers are underpaid, and they're underappreciated because again, you're going into their house. A lot of these inmates, when I was first starting a new boot as a corrections officer, these guys have been in and out of jail and prison for years. And so they know the rules of the pod more than I do. And you have to control your emotions and not let your ego, being the, pod officer. Obviously, you can't let these guys run over you, but you also have to respect that this is their home and you're coming in there.
Yeah.
So there was a lot that I learned. I think just humbling experiences, working in corrections, and I'm so thankful I did.
It's amazing, man. Yeah, I'm doing some work with a big Department of Corrections in a state that's close to me, coming up in July, and I would love to bring this to more, Department of Corrections, bring my system, tactical resilience, ORSM, because this is like ways to operationally reset, right? Maintain situational awareness, hit that stress response in a very intentional way with a stack-based system. And so often corrections officers are time restrained. Like, and
Yeah.
they can't use some of these other techniques because they have to maintain situational awareness at all
Mhm.
times. And this is why I love the stack system because I have in there stacks where you are increasing situational awareness while you're regulating nervous system so that you can access the skills that, you know, you have trained so hard to keep, that communication, reaction time, decision quality, all that stuff, like under pressure gets veiled or eroded and your access to it isn't there. And so, yeah, any Department of Corrections that are hearing this and want to, bring me in or have that conversation about bringing in and offering these tools, proactive human behavior tools to their, um, workers, like I'm available. It's I would love to do that more.
Yeah.
Um, what was the biggest takeaway that you got from corrections?
I think it's just, like I said, controlling your emotions,
Mm.
and I think you're your own worst enemy. It's the same thing with cops, but, how you react to someone, if someone's up here, you can't necessarily always just out scream them and out loud them, to de-escalate. And I think de-escalation in corrections is extremely important because, like I said, your backups downstairs, they might take 3 to 5 minutes to get up there. It's you and 50 inmates. So, I mean, there's no way you're outnumbered. Like, in some situations as a cop, you may have four other, backup officers right there, but in corrections, you're always outnumbered. So,
Mm.
I think the biggest thing I learned was just to really control your emotions and to use de-escalation tactics, you know?
I love this. Like that speaks to what I teach. I mean, that the emotional control
Yeah.
is so important. And when you're activated, right? It's hard to do that. And so what
Mhm.
can you do still maintaining operational safety to de-escalate, deactivate yourself, even downshift
Yeah.
so that you can access that communication that is going to not put yourself in a worse situation. It's super fascinating. Big, dropping a bomb there because people need to hear that. I saw this video the other day, Shepard, like yesterday, I think maybe, or the day before. And this cop was so out of control, like just jacked up, like was dealing with something on it looked like maybe a freeway type of situation. So maybe a
Yeah.
highway patrolman and somebody else zipped by him or something. So now he's got to divert. He goes, pulls this guy over. He's already jacked up that this dude pulled him away from what he was doing. Now he's like, just absolutely yelling, like
Yes.
cursing at this guy. Guy had some marijuana in his car. He's like, is it in a fucking approved,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
I
seen
think I've
this one?
seen that one. Yeah, I think I've
Like,
seen that one.
and the guy's like, "No," and he's like, "Then you're fucked." Like
Yeah.
that it's just
Yeah.
like he's going so hard and you can tell, like, that guy can't de-escalate. He
Yeah.
cannot get himself down. And I think, like, preparing yourself to be in those situations where you're just getting activated so hard, you gotta train that downshifting. You gotta train that ability to become flexible because he was stuck in sympathetic dominant activation like crazy, body bracing, like mental spiral, like heart rate up, like lack of communication skill. All that stuff was just like pinned. And man, I think it's so important what you said about just like controlling that ego and controlling that emotions. What was then you did a year and a half in corrections. What was the transition point there? Like what was your thought process to going, "Hey, you know what? I've gotten some good experience here. I think I wanna go out and be on the street."
Well, I think before I got into corrections, I knew the end goal was to be on the streets, to be a police
Okay.
officer, you know. So I did, I initially wanted to do a year in corrections. I ended up doing a year and a half.
Yep.
Um, and another thing that I realized that it was so much more competitive, back in, I guess, 2018, 2019 versus
Yeah.
it's now. I remember I applied for, multiple police departments here in Central Texas, and there was maybe 2 or 3 openings, and we go there for the written test, and there's a huge line with 200, 250 people, and then you don't score high enough, and they're taking the 2, and if you're already certified, which I wasn't, they're 100% gonna take those.
Yeah.
Um, and it's crazy, the same departments, years later, obviously now, I mean, I think everyone, a lot of departments are short, and retention, is not like it used to be, which I'm sure and now there's 10 openings, and there's a line of 50 people, applying. But no, I always knew that I wanted to get on the streets, and I'm thankful, yeah, that I did started in corrections.
Yeah, it was definitely a change in 2020. Like, you right
Yeah,
when you got in, and then I would say
yeah,
post-COVID, post George Floyd, like, these moments
yeah,
were difficult for law enforcement, and it was difficult for society, I think. And, um I remember hitting up buddies around that time, just being like, "Man, what can be done?" You know? What how does this shift? And I think we're seeing a shift happen in that place where there is more public scrutiny, there is more public negativity towards law
yeah,
enforcement, and it does affect recruiting for sure on the front end, but then when you're in, it affects retention. And then
mhm,
what it also does, I think, is it affects leadership, right? They're under different types of pressure. And then when you have, shitty leadership, or, compromised leadership, or leadership that isn't going to stand and lead the troops, you're gonna have issues. And I think I definitely see, and I talk to these departments, when a leader is leading the way that they should, and they're
mhm,
not, compromised to the political agenda of the community or the city manager or whoever, you have no retention issues. You
yeah,
have people wanting to come there. 2 departments that come to mind are, Doral PD in Florida. That chief just got promoted to City of Miami PD as the chief there. It's gonna be exciting to see what he does in a larger department. And, Apex in, I think, North Carolina. Apex,
mm.
man, crushing it. And, I don't know if it has to do with it, but both those chiefs have tattoos.
Okay, that's alright. Hey, I got my first one. You still
I
tattooing? I need my leg done. I need my leg done.
I love it. Love it. I just did a post on, Instagram about should cops have visible tattoos, and it's going crazy. They're starting to fight in the comments, which I love.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I know.
So if you wanna go see that, anybody that's listening, Joe Swanson Tactical, go check that post out. You can have some entertainment and see, people fighting in the comments.
Hey, let them have tattoos, let them have beards, like, let's go,
Yeah, I don't think it's like, I think you could put parameters on that. I'm about to talk to a guy who's like, an older chief that's leaving, and they're gonna start implementing some, like, um, different policy to allow some of that stuff. It
Yeah,
never affected me negatively, other than in the department. Like, right, the department had views on it. The older chiefs, the older commissioner, the, older sergeants, they didn't like it. But the public, it was always a bridge to public trust. It
mhm,
was always a bridge to, you know, public opening, right? And connection. They loved it, man. They loved seeing me with my short sleeves coming in. They're going, "Oh, wow." And this was back in, 2000 to 2008 when I was a police officer. So even pre some of the second boom in tattooing where like one in every, three people is tattooed now, right? There's sleeves are not an uncommon thing. Back when I got in, it was really uncommon. You were either a criminal or a tattooer or, you know, in a biker gang. It's which is why they when I came in the
Yeah.
academy, they were chasing me down one day, and they're like, first day 1, I tell this story. They're chasing me to my room to get long sleeves on before they knew how to handle me, and they're like, "What biker gang are you in, Swanson? Like, what are you who let you in here? Blah, blah, blah." So it's funny, but so uh, you get on a department, Central Texas, and you're working. Like, what was your initial reaction to working the street? Like, tell me about that experience. Was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it different? Like, what was your experience doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like any new boot police officer, you're excited, you're nervous. I mean, especially once you get released from field training, you're on your own finally, and you're taking these calls for service, and you want to take every call and you want to chase every car and catch every bad guy, but obviously,
Yeah,
you don't want to ask for help because you don't want to feel like you're back in field training, so you want to think you're invincible and do everything by yourself. But just a mix of emotions, I mean,
right.
again, I haven't been in for terribly long since 2020, but you still every year, every call, you learn more and more. So just went through all the emotions, but like I said, overall, it's been a great experience.
That's amazing. And look, anybody that's hearing this who's been on and understands that excitement, like, and ask for help.
Yeah,
Find one goon on the squad who's like a go-getter, hard charger, and befriend that person and ask questions. And also don't rely on just them, but like dig into case law. There's so much available now. Like
yeah,
dig into case law, dig into policy, dig into everything that you can to get better at the job. Like if you want to chase stolens, dig into stolen vehicles. You want to chase dope, dig into like what dope dealers do, like
yeah.
don't get stuck in this loop of like I have to do it all on my own. It's a
Hmm.
team sport, baby. It's a team sport. You gotta
Yeah,
go out there and find that group of people that are going to influence you, and then you can then influence out from what you're doing. I think it's a big trap, like what you were saying, that new officers get into, and they think, "Man, I gotta do it myself. I don't wanna feel like I don't know anything." You don't know
yeah,
anything. Like, come on, like, it's okay. You're learning. The more you ask, the more, you lead with curiosity, the better you're gonna get, and come 5 years on, 10 years on, you're gonna be that guy or that gal that people are coming to and saying, "Yo, Shepherd, like, what's up with this?" You'll be like, "Yo, okay, let me, like, school you to what's going on for real here."
hmm,
And it's awesome, man. So you're out on the street, you're doing your thing, um, getting after it, and I love this, dude. I wanna more people, like, if you're a go-getter, get on my Instagram, man. I wanna hear from you because I hear so much about people that are just like, "Ah, the job is dead. I'm over it, blah, 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 blah." It's so negative sometimes. I wanna hear from I'm connecting right now, and I got a guy coming on the pod soon that is like his group is a bunch of go-getters, and I love
right,
this. And,
yeah,
so you're out there, you're getting after it. Talk about uh, for people that read this title, Day
yeah,
Trading to Retirement, like, talk about this interest in day trading, and I wanna dive into that a little bit. Like, I wanna understand the mental, like, thought process behind it and what you were thinking getting into it, because so many just stick with I'm a cop. This is what I'm doing. I'm not
yeah,
gonna do anything else, and but so many also on the other side of that coin are like, I'm a cop. I'm gonna do this, but I also want to build something more for retirement. I want to build something more that I can do. And I know I was in that, right? I,
yeah,
I looked at real estate. My brother was doing real estate. My dad was doing real estate. I got him into it, right? Like, cause I was
yeah,
searching for something.
yeah,
And, um, you know, what tell me about that. Like, you're out there on the street doing your thing, and then this, like, what's the thought process there?
I think, like I said, I started working at 14. I think I've always just had a good disciplined mindset of saving and investing. And like I, said previously, money isn't the key to happiness, but it helps with a lot of things. And there's a lot of stress and negative things that comes with law enforcement. And if financially if you can cross that off, that's gonna just help a lot in life with the job and everything else. And so, like I said, I worked multiple jobs. Even as a police officer, I was working for steaming carpets and cleaning tiles on my days off. I tried Airbnb. I tried vending machines. I tried investing into startup companies. I had some success with others, and some, I lost almost all or not all. The money that I invested into. I got into trading. I think in 2019, 2020. I had some success early on, but again, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd invest in some stocks, it'd shoot up, I'd take the money out, some of it I'd leave in there and not really focusing it. The stocks would go down, I'd lose all or more than my money, and like I said, so I would always attempt to learn it, but again, I'd try other ventures, like I said, with Airbnb, vending machines, whatever it was. But I knew that and I know a lot of people think, trading is gambling, but if you're disciplined and if you have a strategy, then, it's not just sports betting. It's not just throwing in money, at the casino. Like there's ways, and that's why people invest in the stock market because, if you're disciplined and if you're control your emotions, just like with police, you got to control your emotions with trading. Um, you can be successful and you can have consistent income. And so, like I said, throughout the years, I mean, I took out multiple personal loans. There was a time where I was getting, not approved for personal loans. I lost thousands of dollars trading because I didn't have a consistent strategy, and I was gambling in that sense because I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
Uh, but just like with anything, it takes research, it takes patience, and you got to learn about the markets and how you're going to make money. And for me it took me years. For some people they can get it when they're teenagers, but um looking back, I learned so much from my mistakes and everything, and I realized that there was money to be made out there, where I could spend more time at home or with my friends and family, and I don't have to be working those off-duty gigs that so
Mhm.
many police officers work. I know you talk about a lot, how do police officers and you have techniques and courses, how do they reset after a call for service? How do they reset on their days off? It's hard to reset as a police officer on your day off if on your day off you're working as a police officer on these security gigs,
Right,
you know?
right.
I mean, how are you gonna like reset, mentally, emotionally when you're at Walmart overnight security on your day off? And so, I was thankful for those security gigs, and I know a lot of cops go crazy for those because they make,
Yep.
twice, 2 times more than their hourly wage. But again, in the long run, like, it was hurting me 'cause, you're getting obsessed with it, of working on your days off, and
Yeah.
so it hurts, it hurts you.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like, talk about for those of you for those people that don't know that are listening, what is day trading? And then what I want to do is I want to get into um that point where you began to take it seriously. What was that like? Like, how did you balance these two things? This, like, full-time job as a police officer that you have to be mentally there for, and then this other thing that you're learning. So break down, what is day trading for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects of day trading, but it's buying and selling stocks. I trade options. So a call option or there's put options. It's pretty much the right, not the obligation to buy or sell a stock at a certain price. So if you buy Apple at $100 and you believe that it's going to go up, whether in a day, a week, a month, you can buy a call option at 105, and you're predicting how the stock market's going to act, and there's safer ways to do it. You can trade futures. There's a lot of ways, and and strategies how to invest in the stock market.
This is
Um,
stock market trading. When you say day trading, are you on there every day looking at it? Are you head down? Like for a cop that's out there working 12s,
yeah,
right? Do they have to be head down into the stock market every day? Like what is that cadence
no,
like?
don't. Again, especially with options, you can have contracts that expire a week, a month, so a year. I mean, when silver went up earlier this year, I had options that expire January 15th of 2027. So it was hands free. You're buying these options, and you're not constantly on your phone while you're between calls, and you're on your MDC, looking at the stock market. I mean, you can have these expirations, where you're not having to worry about it when you're at work. So that way, when you're at work, you can focus on work and you don't have to worry about the stock market. And and yeah, it is hands free. There's swing trading, where again, swing trading is you're buying stocks, and you're selling them weeks, months, to even years later.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's not, day trading. I think there's days where I don't trade. I mean, again, it's
Yeah.
not something where you have to do it every day.
Yeah. And I'll just make this disclaimer right here. I'm not a financial advisor. Shepard's not a
I'm
financial
not. I
advisor.
am not a fan. Yeah.
Day trade at your own risk, everybody. God damn it. Like, don't you, this is just for informational purposes only, right? So don't get it twisted here. But Shepard is talking about his own experience and what you've heard it also, like that he had some negative experiences in the beginning. He lost money doing it. Investing is a risk, whether that is in a business, in a franchise, in Airbnbs, in day trading, whatever it is, in your own business, like it can be a risk. So let's just put this disclaimer out here, but talk about when it started to click for you.
Yeah, I think it's when I really just put my head down and had a consistent strategy, because like I said, with trading, just like police, I think emotional control is huge. When you go to a call for service as a police officer and you're agitated and your emotions are high, you clear the call 5 minutes later, you're on another call, and you have to be able to calm yourself down and talk to this person in a calm state, not even though you were just yelling at someone 5 minutes ago. And that's the same thing with day trading. You can have 4 days in a row where you're making thousands of dollars, and you're like, "Okay, this 5th day, I'm gonna make even more." You have a bad day, you lose a trade, and then Monday comes, "Okay, you know what? I had a bad trade. I gotta start this next week off, so I'm gonna put triple the amount of money in," and you're gonna emotionally trade, and you're gonna lose everything that you just made from last week.
Hmm.
So controlling your emotions, like I said, with police and day trading, your worst enemy is yourself and your emotions. I think you got to just control and not get greedy, and just stick to a consistent plan, because the traders who stick to a consistent plan, they're profitable, and they're not we don't have to trade every day, because when I was first starting, if I had a bad day trade, okay, I'm going to make a trade in 15 minutes to make it up. Or if I have a bad day, I'm going to double it tomorrow. And that's how the majority of traders are not successful, because they can't control their emotions.
And I think you hit on a key point there. And this is, again, this is why I teach ORSM, Operational Reset Stack Method. It is about that nervous system flexibility. So you can control that state that you're in. Because if you're in that elevated state, that activation, you're not thinking as clear, right? You're not, decision quality goes down, your reaction time goes down, your impulsivity goes up. Like all of these things happen. And so, yeah, it sounds like ORSM could be great for day traders as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
No, yeah, 100%. And then,
what's the,
like,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just saying, and then like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, and I think my goal, even with starting this social media, is not, for cops to quit their job and become day traders or anything like that. And it's to be smart with money and invest, whether it is day trading, whether it's, real estate, whether it's starting a business, whatever it is. I mean, there's other ways to just get your mind outside of being a cop 24/7, 365 days a year and still
Yeah.
make money. And again, if you can cross off the stress of any financial struggles, it's going to make you a better cop. It's going to make you a better, state trooper, deputy, whatever it is, corrections officer. So again, that's like my main goal, is to just get cops and anyone else watching it just invested in some way or the other.
How did you dial in the strategy? Like you talked about that. That was the big key for you. You started like, and you were kind of all over the place and you would lose some, you'd win some, and then you started to really lock into a strategy. How did you get to there?
I think it's just waiting for the perfect setup. Like I said, when I first started, you want to trade every day. You want to get into every trade possible. And, if you don't trade, you feel like you're losing money and you're, oh, I could have made this. Or, even if you make, a couple $1,000s on a trade, oh, if I didn't sell it now, I would have made, 10 times as much. And so, there's that mentally side. It's being okay with having a bad trade. It's being okay with, taking profit and not getting greedy. I mean that is the big thing because people they'll be up even, more than what they invested and they're like, I'm going to let this ride and I'm going to sell at a later date and then it goes down and they are end up with negative money. So
Yeah.
it's just like I said, the biggest thing with trading and in the trading community, it's like it's always preached about is just controlling your emotions, and that's the biggest thing of whether you're profitable or not.
I mean, I think that's huge. I think that's huge in so many areas where you're not running on fear, greed, revenge, right?
Yeah,
Like impatience or even that overconfidence, like, oh man, I hit this one trade. Let me like,
yeah,
I'm gonna get after it now. And then you get in over your head and all of a sudden you're under, right? Um,
yes.
what has been the biggest way for you to not like chase those trades or chase those ideas of being overconfident when you're up, like when you're working on that.
Yeah, I think it's taking small profits and if the stock were to go down, that you're having your stop loss set that you're not gonna lose more than if you're already up, you're not gonna lose more than what you invested.
Mhm.
And being consistent with your stop loss. Like I said, if you have a bad trade and it doesn't go your way, like lock yourself out of the stock market and go about your day. You don't need a revenge trade, and be done with the day and yeah, that's the biggest thing is just not letting it get emotionally to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this has been a vein through this whole conversation is this emotional regulation, and I think it's again kind of probably why I wanted to bring you on because I know these things can be emotional,
Yeah,
and you cops are working into if you're doing this also, you're also working in another emotional place,
yeah.
right? You're on duty, you're emotional. You're trading, you're emotional. Like you have to be able to regulate that stuff. And if somebody wanted to get into it, like what's this like? Obviously, they can go to your Instagram, right? They can, and you definitely feel free to shout that out. Watch kind of your trades. You're not selling them anything. You're just saying, hey, like, take a look at this. This is what I'm doing. I think on X, you're giving like even more deeper, like suggestions and ability for somebody to watch what you're doing and maybe match what you're doing, which is kind of cool. You're
Yeah.
not looking to sell them a program or anything. You're out there trying to help people. But if somebody wants to sort of like dip their toe in the water and start like, is there an app that they can watch the stock market on? Is there like, what would you suggest would be the ways to do that?
I mean, honestly, just watching as many videos, doing as much research as you can.
Okay.
Like I said, you can follow me 10-4 trades on Instagram and X. I'll post every trade that I'm doing. I'm starting challenges, but I don't want to sell courses. I'm not trying to get you to join a Discord or sell a super secret method for thousands of dollars, that I'm selling. I really want the goal is to get people inspired into investing into the stock market because when you look at a police retirement, your pension, which there are great retirements, but all the money that they're taking out of your paycheck, they're investing in the stock market. That's why they can pay you out after 20, 30 years when you retire,
Right.
and if you get in the mindset of all these, insurance companies, they're using your money, and that's how they're able to pay you when you get into a car crash, and they're using that money and investing it, and so they're doing it on a larger scale with millions of dollars. But we all can do that with our own money, even if it's a couple $100, a couple $1,000. So that's the biggest thing is just, get cops or anyone else inspired into investing.
I love it, man. I love the openness. I love the, heart for service, right? You have that as a police officer and it's bleeding over into this other like really cool venture that you got into that's been successful for you. It's become valuable in your own life and meaningful. And I think that's exciting to share that stuff. So, man, if anybody out there is interested, 104 Trades on Instagram and X and just go like connect with Sheperd and have that conversation or just watch what he's doing. Um, what if you could give any advice, to folks out there that are interested in taking on this investment role in their lives, what would it be?
I think, invest as early as you can. And even if you're older, you can still get into it. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's a Roth IRA, as police, government employees, we have the privilege of investing in 457, 457B plans. I mean, there's just so many ways, where it is hands free, but even there's just so many people who don't have Roth IRAs or other additional retirements. Just any kind of ways that, you can invest, whether
Hmm.
it's the stock market, whether it's real estate, whether it's starting a business, just make life easier and cross off that financial stress,
Yep.
that we all go through.
I love it, Sheperd. This is amazing. And for anybody else, you can hit me up on Instagram. I'm connected with Athena Financial 911, Southern California company that I did a webinar with, and we talked about having the not only the strategy for investing your money, but the capacity. This is like really speaking to what this webinar I did with them was like having that emotional capacity, the decision capacity to make those decisions. So hit me up too if you want. I'll connect you with them. They're great people over there, former law enforcement, and amazing. I would encourage anybody to start digging around in these places to set yourself up for future success. And man, Sheperd, I so appreciate you coming on, brother. Like it's really fun to hear about your experience and one, not only your excitement about law enforcement, you're really aware your awareness getting into it and then working it. It's really inspiring. And then that shift that you made to like, just keeping that like, taking that same, uh, like, active mindset and
Mhm.
bringing it into day trading, dude. Man, I so appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, it's great to hear all what you're doing for the law enforcement community, and I appreciate having me on here.
Man, my pleasure, dude, and again, anybody, is interested in following Sheperd, 104 Trades on Instagram and X, you wanna follow me, Joe Swanson Tactical. If you are an officer that wants to reconnect to that excitement of the job, you're feeling that, burnout or you're feeling that tension, um, it's likely because you're not able to access some of those skills because you're stuck in a certain state. I talked about this the other day on a reel where state control is so important. Why do cops burn out? Because they're stuck in one state that sucks up your energy. It's tiring, it's frustrating, leads to impatience, and the access to those skills that you work so hard to get is eroded, it's veiled, it's blocked, and that can be frustrating, which is going to lead to burnout. So, um, it's just as much learning ORSM is just as much about fighting burnout as it is about high performance because they're very connected. So if you're interested in it, joeswansontactical.com, check out the online program, hit up one of my, in-person programs. But look, that online program is on demand, there for you to learn. And get into. So start using it day to day, proactive, get active and do it. So thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend, like it, subscribe. It helps get this message of, law enforcement excitement, law enforcement, performance and wellness and out to more people. So I appreciate everybody that's listening. Shepherd, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me on, Joe.
All right, yeah, everybody. Enjoy your right now and stay sharp.